Facebook Mobile DevCon London. That was pretty lame. In New York, we got like rounds of applause, and we hadn't even started yet. But it's super exciting to have you guys here. We've put a lot of effort into today, and we know that you guys could be back at your companies building the next version of your products and apps and coding, and instead you decided to spend that day with us. So that we really appreciate. Let's start with some of the pleasantries. You're all on the Wi-Fi? Is that all good? No. Paul? We literally have a guy called Paul, and he's in charge of all these things. He has graphs and laptops and lots of stuff up there. So with any luck, he's up there like making it all work. It's very important Wi-Fi, almost more important than beer and pizza at the end. Next thing is food. As I said, Wi-Fi, very important. Food, very important too. So hopefully you guys have had a good breakfast. We're going to have a break at 12 for lunch, and then this afternoon and this evening at 6 o'clock, we'll have dinner and then office hours where you can hang out with Facebook's engineers and product managers. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the group. If you guys haven't joined the group, please do so now. Facebook.com/groups/MobileDevConLondon. In that group is a great place to post questions, and we have many of the Facebook team will sit in that group today and answer those questions for you. And the hashtag for today is FBMobile. So if you're Instagramming or Twittering or even Facebooking, then feel free to use that hashtag so people can find out what we're all talking about today. And more important than Wi-Fi and food, I know, is swag. Yes, we have T-shirts. You can get one of these. But they will be at the end of the day today. So if you hang around today, and there'll be a survey, which we really value your feedback on, and then we have T-shirts and phone covers and a bunch of other cool swag to give you. I actually forgot to introduce myself. I actually know some of you in the audience because I've been based in London for Facebook for the last 2.5 years. So it's great to see so many people I've worked with before here. But it's more exciting to see tons of the people I don't know here. So my name's Simon Cross. I work at Facebook here in London. And I've been at Facebook for about 2.5 years. And it's exciting to be running this event here in London today. This event is one of only 3 that we're running around the world in this half of the year. The first one was in New York a few weeks ago, where we announced the brand new Object API, the Object Browser, and our native share dialog for iOS. We're here today, of course, in London, and then next week we're going to be in Seoul, which is a hotbed of talent in Asia. But I'm super excited to be doing this event here in London. And we only had to pick 3 cities, and choosing London was an exciting one for us here. And that's because London is where we have our 4th engineering office, only our 4th. And it's the only one outside of the US. And the fact that we chose London to open an engineering office last year is a testament not only to the talent here in London and the ecosystem here in London, but also Europe itself. So Facebook London is a group of people building the next generation of Facebook, right? We have engineers here in London working on stuff like the Object API itself that we announced in New York a couple of weeks ago. The first version of that was built by an engineer here in London. We have other engineers working on our internal tooling, which is what makes our engineers fast. And we have people here working on things like mobile performance and optimization, which mean that we can fit Facebook for Android, for example, on Android devices with small memory footprints. But then a couple of days ago, we actually announced that Lars Rasmussen, who's one of the key engineers behind Graph Search, he's going to be moving to London, and he's going to be building out a team in London to build the next generation of Graph Search. And Graph Search is one of our key 3 pillars at Facebook, along with Timeline and Newsfeed. So that's just a testament to the strength of talent that's available here and how seriously we take Europe and how seriously we take London in particular. This is actually what we normally look like on a day-to-day basis. It's not quite as formal as you think. But we don't want Facebook in London to be an ivory tower, right? We're spending as much time and energy as we can making Facebook London part of the incredible tech community here in London itself, which is why we've been hosting a ton of developer events, which hopefully some of you have been to. So we hosted Music Hack Day back in November, and Martin, that runs Music Hack Day, is in the back of the room. Hello, Martin. Awesome event, awesome dude. And so we had 150 people spend the weekend with us, literally building everything from music recognition, APIs, to, I kid you not, somebody tracking the Twitter and Facebook buzz of artists and then drawing those as a line graph onto an egg. It's the kind of thing that happens at Music Hack Day. And then earlier this year, we hosted EdgeConf, which again, we hosted with Google and FT Labs. And that was 150 people thinking and chewing on the future of the web as a platform. And then we've been hosting our own tech talks themselves. So we've had tech talks on everything from our infrastructure to graph search to newsfeed. And hopefully some of you guys will have been to those tech talks as well. I highly recommend liking the Facebook London page, which is where we announce much of this stuff. But we're here today to talk about Facebook platform, our APIs, our SDKs, and now, PARs. And London is a really important place for us for platform, and Europe is a really important place for platform. Not many people know this, but there are more developers building apps with Facebook in Europe than there are in any other region of the world, including North America. And in fact, London vies with New York regularly to be the city second to California, second to San Francisco, where we have more developers building Facebook into their apps than anywhere else in the world. Which is why it's great to have so many of you guys come and spend the day with us today, which we thank you for. So as I said, we've put a huge amount of effort into today. We really hope it's valuable for you. We're going to get deep into product, and we're going to get very deep into code. So here's how the day is going to shape out. This morning, you're going to hear from two people at the center of the next generation of our platform. So James works on, he's our global head of developer relations. And then Rose is the product manager for Open Graph. So everything to do with Open Graph, she's not only able to talk about it, but she's thinking about where it goes next. And then I'm going to come up and talk about something which Facebook is uniquely placed to help with, and that is growing your apps across many platforms. Then it's lunch, and then after lunch, we're going to break out into two rooms. So we have this room, and we have another room, and we have 10 sessions across the afternoon, ranging from iOS to Android, ranging from our platform to how Facebook itself builds our iOS and Android apps. And hopefully, there's some really useful stuff that you can take away from those sessions too. Then at 5, we're going to come back in here, and I'm really excited by the developer panel that we've managed to put together. Spotify, Zbox, IM, and Runtastic. Those guys are going to come up and talk about not only their experience fairly candidly with building with our platform, but also what it's been like for them building and growing their businesses centered around mobile. And then, that's not the end. From 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock tonight, we have this whole area. We have food, and we have drinks, and we have a ton of people from Facebook. How many of you guys have never met anyone from Facebook before? Okay, probably around half of you. For those of you that have, there may be some familiar faces, but we have some guys from our head office here as well, from California. And for those of you that have never met anyone from Facebook, now's your chance. This is a great opportunity for you to ask questions about like product or like even at a code level, why is this thing not working the way it should do? Should I change something? But also to give us feedback, right? We really value your feedback. The fact that we have product managers and engineers here helps us ingest what you guys think of our platform, how it's working for you, and what you think we should do next, and take that right back to our roadmaps. So we really hope you stick around this afternoon and take that time to spend with us to make our platform and product better. So, without further ado, let's get started with the day. And so to talk about the journey that we've all taken on mobile, please welcome James Pearce. James.
Can I have the clicker? Welcome, everybody. It's really fantastic to be here, back in London. So, welcome to Mobile DevCon. We take the dev in DevCon extremely seriously at Facebook. Everyone in this room, we think, well, we asked you, is a mobile developer. Now, your job title might say something like CTO, or product manager, or engineer, or designer, or coder, or maybe even hacker. But everyone in this room is someone who uses software to build things. What your job title is not designed, it's not designed to put you in a box. In a sense, that's irrelevant. Everybody in this room is a maker. We're people who build things. And if you think about it, that's actually quite an amazing thing that we do. With nothing more than the raw materials of our intellect and our creativity and our aspiration, not to mention a few electrons, we're able to put together these incredible products, services, and tools that people all over the world are able to use on their PCs, on their Macs, on their desktop computers, on their mobile devices. And this is a real gift that we've got. We should be very proud of it. But I think it's important to remember that what we do, we're never doing it alone. Now, like me, you probably often sit in front of a computer with your headphones on trying to get in the zone. But software development has never been a solitary activity. For a start, as Isaac Newton probably never said about mobile development, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. We are each building on technologies, on stacks, on platforms that have been built over decades. Whenever we develop, we're working with colleagues, we're working with clients, with customers, our teams. When we get stuck with some obscure programming problem or we can't decipher a regex, we go online, we search, we look for solutions from other people. And of course, when we make something that we're proud of, we share it, we publish it, we promote it, we open source it. So we're actually extremely social beings as software developers. And what's more, we always, I think, have a deep sense of affinity with the platforms and the technologies that we're using. Somehow, the technologies and the stacks and the platforms that we use, they're defining us. They define us as developers. It's why we wear geeky t-shirts. It's because we want to declare what it is that we use and the choices that we've made in the technologies that we've worked with. So whether you think of yourself as an Android developer or an iOS developer, whether you've chosen to use MongoDB as your database or Redis, whether you're a designer and you've chosen to use less instead of SAS, whether you're a web developer that uses jQuery or doesn't, you're making choices and you're declaring your affinities to these technologies. And how clearly we want to do that. This is a very, very important point. Because you might laugh about the t-shirts that we wear, but everybody in the world wants to express their identity through the things that they use. Whilst we're talking about binary technology decisions, how about this one? HTML5 or native. So I am sure you have heard this question asked innumerable times over the last 3 years. And we will talk a bit about this today. We'll talk about the choices that we've made, and we'll talk about some of the choices that many of you are making. But I think this is a fascinating question. Not because there's an answer, a right answer, not because there's actually an answer at all, but because the question itself is an extremely telling question. The fact that we are asking questions like this is a symptom of something deep and something important. And that is that we're all lucky enough to be taking part in a major shift in computing. The journey to mobile is just beginning. And when we're asking questions like this, it's a sign that we're trying to orient ourselves around the choices we should be making as we navigate ourselves along that journey. So whilst we're talking about self-identification, I've got a couple more questions for you. Are you a desktop developer? Or are you a mobile developer? If you can't decide, here are some equivalent questions. Do you think your users are desktop users, or do you think your users are mobile users? You're a mobile user, I heard it. Are your users iOS users? Are your users Android users? Are they mobile web users? Are they TV users? Are they iWatch users or Google Glass users? Well, of course, the answer is no to every single one of those questions. The entire premise of this question is wrong. These people are not users. These people are people. They're fellow human beings. We're creating the things that we create for people like ourselves. We're not developing for a certain logo on the back of a phone. We're not developing for silicon that rattles at a certain speed. We're not developing for a piece of glass that just happens to be so many pixels wide that we can throw a media query at and be done. No, we're making things for people, and regardless of the device that they have in their hand and regardless of the screen that they have in front of them, I think that what we make as a community needs to reach through that technology and somehow touch the humanity that's on the other side. Because in the same way that technologies define us as developers, the apps that people use define them. They use them every day, and the apps that people use, in some sense, help to define their identity. We each want to use technology to be human. We want to tell stories about ourselves. We want to stay connected to friends and family. The telephone was the original read-write device. We only ever used the telephone to stay connected and to talk to other people. And so it's no surprise today that we spend still so much time on these devices staying connected. And it's no coincidence that something like 20% of people's time on phones today is spent on Facebook. Not that phone. And when you add in Instagram, it's more than a quarter of people's time. And when you add in all the other social and communication-based apps, no other genre of application comes close. Mobile device usage is absolutely dominated by social experiences. And it's us as humans trying to stay connected. It's us trying to be human with our technology. But this is still a work in progress. If you're like me, you have a home screen that looks something like this, covered in red circles. We spend so much time interacting with people, and yet we orient our lives around icons, both as developers and as the people that have to look at those red circles. But these 30 notifications, these different apps that are nagging me for my attention, these notifications might only represent a relatively small number of people that are trying to interact with me or people that I'm trying to interact with. And obviously at Facebook, we think a lot about this because we think that instead of pivoting technology around functionality and then users, it should be possible to pivot functionality around users, people, and then technology. There's a reason this has taken so long to happen. Since the earliest graphical user interface, computers have been task-oriented, windows of icons. And the reason for this, of course, was that computers were pretty unpleasant to use. This is Windows 3.1, enough said. And they were so unpleasant to use that you just used them for the absolute minimum of time. You got in, you did the task that was required of you, and you got out. So there are icons. They represent a task. I go in, I do my job, I close the window as quick as I can, reduce the swap file, and step away from the computer. But 20 years on, wait a minute, we're still designing our devices like this. Windows of tasks. The icons are much prettier, but if we're designing for mobile, we should be designing for people. Mobile first really means people first. One of the main reasons we think about this is this. The mobile device is with you all the time. It's not something you step up to do a job and then step away from. It's with you perpetually. And it's your way of constantly staying connected with what's going on in the world. How often do you find yourself with a few spare minutes, waiting in line, waiting for the train, waiting for a coffee, and you get your phone out, not to do a task, but just to see what's going on, to stay connected? We're using our technology in more ambient ways than we ever have done before. And the second big reason I think it's important to think like this is this reason, and it's a very, very big reason. The next billion people that are going to get connected will never have seen a computer or will never have used a computer. So think about that. I can see lots of Apple logos. We are not, as a room, a statistically representative demographic sample. But the next billion people, think about this, the next billion people to get connected will not have used a computer. They will have never used Windows 3.1. And I'm not just talking about developing countries and parts of the world which have yet to be connected at all. I'm talking about the next generations everywhere. Imagine never having used a computer. You pick up a piece of technology for the very first time, your first mobile device, your first mobile tablet, and you expect this technology immediately to be social by design. You do not expect it to coerce you into performing tasks. You expect it immediately to let you interact with people in the same way that you did do before you got that piece of technology. And I think the important thing for everyone in this room to think about is this. People are going to seek out the experiences that do that for them. And they will prefer those experiences over the ones that do not. Social by design is not a gimmick. It's going to become a mandatory expectation that you need to fulfill. And by the way, at Facebook, we're seeing this already. Well, it's been growing for a while. But these are our mobile growth figures. Well, both our desktop and our mobile growth figures, actually. Our total monthly active users as of last night was 1.1 billion people. Obviously, this is a number we're very excited about. It's a big number. But the one that is absolutely staggering is the green line beneath it. And that is our mobile monthly active user population, which has just topped 750 million people. 750 million people around the world using their mobile devices. And that's just Facebook. I can assure you, by the way, that there's another graph, not on here, which is the people that are only using mobile for Facebook. And whilst we don't give out that number, I can tell you that is another staggering statistic. So whether we like it or not, our users are going to mobile, and we as a company are having to make the journey to help fulfill these expectations exponentially quickly, I should add. As part of the journey to help fulfill these expectations, we've obviously looked at lots of different technology stacks. We work with lots of different options. We work with lots of different types of apps. We've worked hard on HTML5. We still continue to deliver the majority of our web experience, the majority of our mobile experiences on web to over 7,000 devices around the world. That said, we're now fairly aware of what HTML5 can do well and what it can't do well, and we continue to work hard with standards bodies and community groups like CoreMob and Ringmark to try to improve that. Last summer, we launched our iOS native app, which was well received, but that was hard work. Alan will be up later to talk about the journey that we've been on there, but we had to retool, a large part of our engineering team to be able to deliver first-class experiences on a new native platform. We had to put hundreds of engineers through training courses to be able to do this. And on Android, same thing. And with Android, we've also had the opportunity to develop Facebook Home, which has been a great opportunity for us to put this concept of orienting a phone experience around people first and technology second into that product. So what has this journey so far taught us? Well, it's obviously taught us a lot of things, and you're going to be hearing from our engineering teams today as they talk about that journey that we've been on and what's worked well and what hasn't worked and how we're trying to do this. But I think if we've learned just one thing, it's this. We've learned that cross-platform, at this point, is non-negotiable. We've had to do it, you'll have to do it, and you're developing for people, and you have no idea what technologies these people are going to use and going to want to use. Highly diverse requirements, highly diverse technologies that they're using. This is going to sound a bit pompous, but cross-platform is sort of another way of saying pan-species. That is really the only way that we're going to be able to reach that next billion people and the billion beyond that. Okay, James, I got it. Millions, billions of people. Mobile's a big opportunity. I'm going to rush out and build an app. I've heard that photo apps are great, and I'm going to go and build a social photo app. Awesome. It's going to be the best social photo app ever built. I would encourage you to have that sort of ambition. But there's one thing you need to know. There's a dark side to mobile. And the dark side is this, which is that even if you built the most spectacular, the best app in the world, you are not alone. In fact, not only are you not alone, you're more or less nowhere. You're a speck of dust amongst millions of other apps. As one of my colleagues, Carl Sagan, may have said, you're a pale blue dot in an ever-expanding universe of mobile demand and supply. It's a galaxy of already 700,000 Android apps, 700,000 iOS apps, 700 million websites. 10% of the web's traffic now is coming from mobile devices, and of course that's growing every day. And if, like us, you're people who take pride in what you create, and we're rather hoping that people are going to get to use it, this is not a good place to be. So I'm going to leave you with that dark and foreboding thought. It's very sobering. I know we're in a brewery, but I think there are three big ideas here. How do we build applications that work across these innumerable platforms? How can we make sure we put people at the heart of the experience that we're creating for them? And how can we make sure that our work is being found and used by those billions of people? So obviously these are the three ideas that really underpin what we do at Facebook when we create our platform. How can we help you to build applications? How can we help you to get them distributed? And how can we help you to promote them? I'm going to start with build. It is our ambition to allow you, easier than anywhere else on the planet, to build amazing cross-platform apps. Now, that's quite an ambition, but we're very serious about it. And of course, this is why we were extremely proud last week to announce the acquisition of Pearce. So Pearce is a cloud-based platform that provides scalable cross-platform services, tools, development environments, runtime environments. There's cloud-based data storage, there's synchronization, there are notification services, there are cross-network social integrations. There's even a cloud-based runtime environment for JavaScript. All of these services are fronted with a range of SDKs, iOS, Android, JavaScript, Windows. Don't often see pictures of Windows Surface on my slides, but there's one. And we're extremely, extremely excited about this. We're extremely excited about what Pearce can do for developers like yourselves. So excited that we moved as fast as we could to get the team along today. And there's a session this afternoon from Hector, who'll be taking you through everything that Pearce can do. We hope you'll be as excited as we are. But if there's only one thing I want you to come away with from his session, and, well, perhaps even from my keynote, it's this. We're absolutely committed to this vision. We're absolutely committed to keeping Pearce going, keeping Pearce's services going, and making this a very core part of our mobile platform. The central part of our platform is about giving users identity and allowing that to drive the distribution to your applications. As we've seen, people want to tell stories. We want to provide you with the tools that allow you to do that within your apps. This part of our platform exists to help you fulfill their expectations. Here's your lonely gray app. Empty, quiet, pin dropping. The first step to illuminating your application with social integrations, of course, is letting people tell stories. How do you get them to tell their stories if you don't know who they are? So, of course, the first part of this platform is Facebook login. And as you might imagine, that's simply a way to allow users to authenticate with Facebook into your app. I'm sure this is all very familiar to many of you, if not all of you. But we've worked very hard to make sure that this is as good an experience as possible on mobile. And over the last 6 to 12 months, we've worked extremely hard on this on multiple platforms. On iOS, for example, in iOS 6, there's an operating system level login dialog to ask the user for permission to access your app, or for you to access their data. On Android, we provide a similar and idiomatic native dialog if they've got the Android app installed. And on mobile web, or if the other techniques fall back, just last week we rolled out our new login and permissions dialog, which we think looks rather nice, but is really designed to help users feel that they can trust your apps and that they can trust how you're going to use their data and let them share data and stories back to Facebook. Now, there are lots of nuances around how to do Facebook login in the best possible ways, lots of tips and best practices. I would advise you to check out Bear and Prashant and Connor's sessions this afternoon, where they'll be taking you through these flows on those different platforms. Now, if you're like me, you probably think that login isn't actually that difficult a computer science problem, and you've probably built a few homegrown auth systems along the way. How hard can it be, right? And that's fine. But there's one very important thing, which is, well, think of it this way. Have you ever been to a party where the host or hostess doesn't actually know who you are? You turn up at their front door. Of course, they're very polite, so they let you in. But they know nothing about you. They don't know what drinks you like, so they can't offer you drinks. They don't know what you're interested in. They don't know who you know. They don't know who to introduce you to at the party. For you, that's a pretty miserable experience. And apps are no different. As a developer, you have an obligation to make people feel at home as soon as you can, make them feel comfortable, make them feel that your app is a social and engaging place. So really the key to login is not that it's login, it's that it's a gateway for you to be able to do amazing things with that experience and to personalize the experience for the user. If you build your own auth system, a new user is an empty row in a database table. If you use Facebook login, you now know a lot more about that user, and you can start to personalize that experience. How about telling them which of their friends are already using the app, making them feel like they're at home? And of course, like any good party, you want to start sharing stories. You want to start telling people what you do, and you want to, engage. And again, this dynamic is no different, and a core part of this platform is around sharing. And again, we've worked hard to make sure this is as good as possible on a variety of mobile platforms. On iOS, there's a native dialogue. On Android, we're improving the dialogues. On mobile web, the dialogues are getting better and better as well. And of course, those stories then get surfaced again onto people's news feeds or onto people's timeline, and that's their stories, but more importantly, your app that's being discovered. Prashant, maybe this afternoon, can tell you why he's posting about Justin Bieber. And that, of course, completes this virtuous circle, if you like. You've got your party going, if you like. But ultimately, this is nothing more than karma. People are expecting social experiences. you're delivering them, and in return, you're getting the distribution that that can bring. Now, as we move to mobile, things get a bit more interesting, because those stories that are being surfaced on people's timelines and in their news feeds could be coming up on a variety of different platforms. As we've seen, more and more people are using their mobile devices to access these stories. And what that means is that more and more people are getting driven back to your apps from a variety of different platforms. And this is where you have an obligation to raise your game. And you have an obligation to make sure that your app is ready to serve those people regardless of the platform that they're on and regardless of the app that they're coming from. People switch devices, they switch contexts, and you're going to have to support this. This is a very, very key concept. So much so that we gave Simon an entire keynote to talk about this. It's non-negotiable. Also, at the bottom there, we've worked hard to improve Open Graph. Open Graph, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, I guess it's like Share++. Open Graph is a way for you as developers to create vocabularies of actions and objects that your users can perform in order to create more structured stories about what they're doing, which create richer and more engaging stories on Facebook. I'll be honest, Open Graph was pretty frustrating for mobile developers at least, if only because its architecture required you to have a web server. If you're a native developer and you don't have a web server for any other reason, it's pretty frustrating to have to spin up a web server simply to be able to do Open Graph. So at this event 2 weeks ago in New York, we were very proud to announce our Object API, which is an extremely easy and powerful way for native developers, JavaScript developers too, I guess, to use Facebook infrastructure to store the objects that are used in those Open Graph stories. And Rose, who is the product manager for Open Graph as a whole, will be up right after me to tell you a lot more about that. We've also upgraded our share dialogues. So our new iOS native share dialogue allows you to post strongly structured Open Graph stories direct from the user interface. And this is fantastic for users. It's putting them far more in control of the stories that are being shared. They're far less likely to see stories that they weren't expecting appear, and it obviously gives them a chance to add additional commentary about what it is that they're doing in your app. Ultimately, we want you to be able to let your users tell their stories. Whilst we were at it, we also added the ability for people to share without logging in. Now, you might not be optimizing for that, but it goes a long way to improve user trust. If people know what your app is doing and they know the sorts of stories that they can post from your app and the sorts of things that they can do in your app, they'll be far more comfortable when you actually ask them to authenticate at a later point. So these are new features that are available in version 3.5 of our iOS SDK. It's still in beta, but everyone that's at the conference today has been added to that beta program, so you'll be able to start using that functionality. A couple of final bits of turbocharging just to add into the mix. Graph search is one. Simon's already mentioned graph search. We're very excited that that's going to be a big piece of the engineering effort here in the Facebook London office. But graph search is a way for people to use natural language in Facebook to search for things, search for people, and so forth. You may not have known, but it works for apps too. Try typing in apps that my friends in London use. It's pretty cool. Again, a great way for your apps to get discovered and for new people to come in and join this virtuous circle. And then, of course, App Center. The Facebook App Center, which is a socialized take on the classic App Store model, but which really none of you have an excuse not to use. It's an additive way for you to get extra discoverability of your apps. And actually, it turns out that the rating profile of our App Center is generally more long-lived than those on other platforms. So really, again, you have no excuse not to use that. So by this point, this is looking like a fairly complex diagram, and I apologize for that. But I guess the main question is, does this work? Well, I'm not a salesman, but yes, we think it does. We're driving, with these dynamics, 260 million monthly referrals. That's over 250 million referrals to the app stores. And these are users who've clicked through on a story, or they've clicked through on an ad, or they've come in some other way from that virtuous circle to those app stores, looking for apps ready to download. And that's how you're going to get discovered. Simple as that. %80 of the top 100 iOS apps, 70% of the top Android apps are also integrating with Facebook. So many of you here may be in those charts. Many of you may be not. But there seems to be some correlation between using Facebook and being successful in terms of distribution. And for those of you that are not yet in the top 100, despite that, regardless of the types of apps you're building, regardless of the stacks you're using, I want you to come away feeling like we're committed to helping you be successful. And we're going to continue to make our platform more stable. We're going to continue to make our platform more reliable and better documented to help you get there. There's one final piece of the jigsaw, of course, which is promote. And this is simply about using either sponsored stories or mobile app install ads. And we looked at this picture and we figured out that there was probably one more way we could turbocharge it, which was to provide ads directly into Newsfeed to help you promote your applications. And this, by the way, is fantastic when you have yet to get any users. When you launch your app and you want to turbocharge it from day zero, this is the kind of dynamic that can help kickstart this health circle. Placing an ad that appears in a newsfeed that, again, will drive people straight through to the App Store. So Paul has a whole session on this afternoon. It's extremely simple to use, but something like 40% of our top 100 apps are using this already, and we're launching some cool new user targeting services today as well. So highly recommend you check out Paul's session. I think he might be having a small giveaway as well to help you get started with that. So that's it. That's our platform. That's how we see the world, or rather, how we see what we can do to help you and your world. How can we help you be successful on this mobile journey? So at the beginning of the session, I said we're all makers. But what I didn't ask is this. Why are we makers? Why do we make things? Why do you make things? Why do we at Facebook make things? Why do we try to make things to help you make things? And this is actually a really interesting question. Steve Jobs was asked 20 years or so ago now why he made computers. And I think his answer is quite resonant and kind of sticks with me. It turns out that there was a study done of the different animals in the animal kingdom and their locomotive efficiency. In other words, how much energy does it take for different animals to move a given distance? I think the condor won, and the albatross was probably second. But humans were about a third of the way down the list. It turns out that we are not particularly efficient at moving over the ground, which is a pretty poor showing considering, right? Considering we were the people doing the study, I suppose. But someone thought to go back and do the study again, but this time to measure humans on bicycles. The bicycle, something that had been made. And it turns out that when you put a human on a bicycle, not only do they move to the top of the charts, but they blow the charts away. On a bike, a human leaves the condor in the dust. And this is, I think, why we as humans make things. It's to become more efficient. It's to be able to augment our abilities. It's to be able to extend ourselves beyond what nature would otherwise have given us. And what Steve Jobs said was this. He said, I make computers because computers are a bicycle for the mind. Okay? It's a fairly famous quote, but it's really worth thinking about. It's a device that was made, highly complicated piece of technology, that enhances our mental abilities, makes us more efficient, makes us more productive. But that was 1990. mobile phones didn't really exist. And now mobile devices inhabit a far greater part of our lives than computers ever did. So what is the mobile device? So as we've seen, I think a mobile device is something that helps us to connect, it's something that helps us to share. It's something that helps extend our identity. So more than just a computer, a mobile device is not just something that is a bicycle for the mind, it's a bicycle for our identities. And it's a bicycle for the identities of the next billion people that will be using them. And today, at Mobile DevCon, I'm sure I'm stretching the analogy too far at this point. We want today, and we want Facebook, and we want our platform to be a bicycle for you. We want to be able to provide you with the things that you need to help be successful. We want to help you build and distribute and promote all of the amazing things that you're going to create for this brave new mobile world. And we hope you have a great time doing it. Thank you very much.